Survivors by Katy Haye. The body was barely cold before the family descended, like the vultures they were. Poppy, fortunately, was prepared. She'd met Zosran's children on several memorable occasions, and he'd warned her how he feared they would act following his demise. "Where's my mother's jewel chest? And the key?" His eldest daughter made the demand in a haughty tone, expecting immediate compliance. She barely even glanced at Poppy. She was only a servant, after all. "I don't have it." Poppy's tone was respectful, but calm and utterly clear. "What do you mean? Aren't you the housekeeper? Have you lost it?" Desmeralda was sneering now. "All the keys for the house and its contents have been handed to the lawyer, in preparation for the reading of the will this afternoon." Desmeralda's face tightened. "But my mother's jewellery will come to me." Poppy inclined her head. "If that's what the will states, then the lawyers will of course ensure it goes to you." "Well, of course it will be left to me," she snapped. "Who else could it be left to?" "Me." Filippano, Zosran's son, stepped into the room. He must have been lurking outside the door to know what they were talking about. It was exactly the sort of behaviour Zosran had warned Poppy about. Probably he'd first loitered outside the study in an attempt to hear the lawyer's discussions. Then he'd come here when that was frustrated by the thick walls and the locked door. "You?" The tone was scornful, as though the idea were ridiculous. "Yes, they should come to me as the son and heir, for my wife to wear." His sister's nostrils flared, as though she could smell the jewels vanishing from her avaricious grip. "That's ridiculous." "Is it?" her brother drawled. "Our father was an old-fashioned man. He's probably left everything to me." He grinned, although there was no kindness in the flash of his teeth. "Don't worry, I'll take care of you and Jacintia." Desmeralda swung to Poppy. "You were with him in his last days. You must know what's in the will." Poppy had indeed been given an outline of the provisions, but torture wouldn't drag that information out of her. She was looking forward to the will reading too much. "I understand the will was written several years ago. I will learn what it says when you do." Those expressive nostrils flared again. "You? There's no reason for you to be there." Filippano leaned against the wall, watching the women as though they were entertainment laid on for his amusement. "Maybe the old man left everything to his housekeeper," he drawled, then laughed at his own joke. "Don't even say such a thing," Desmeralda said. She glared at Poppy. "You don't need to be there. In fact, there's no reason for you to be in this house any longer. I terminate your contract. Leave now." Poppy gave a mild smile. "I'm paid until the end of the month, and Zosran asked me specifically to stay until after his funeral." "Zosran?" She looked infuriated and horrified. "Not Mr. Celestri or Sir? Did my father allow you to call him by his given name?" Poppy's smile held firm, her tone remaining mild. "He insisted upon it." Desmeralda looked as though she wanted to argue, then, blessedly, saw the futility in that. "Very well. Tomorrow morning, and I'm being generous, I expect you to leave. You can go and pack now." Poppy gave no reply to that offer. "I've prepared refreshments in the morning room. I suggest you'll be more comfortable there while we wait for the lawyers. And your sister." "Jacintia was always late," her brother scoffed, pushing off from the wall. "Fine, we might as well eat what you've prepared. It's our food now, after all." The two left. Poppy continued her duties only until the third of Zosran's children, Jacintia, arrived. Once she'd been shown to the morning room, Poppy retired to her room to change. She would listen to the will reading as her own woman, not as the housekeeper. She smiled, as Zosran's children were at such pains to point out. That role would no longer be hers very shortly. The study had been set up with 4 chairs facing the desk appropriated by the lawyers, 3 side by side for Zosran's children, and 1 set a little apart for Poppy. "Are we fraternising with the servants now?" Jacintia demanded when she walked in with her brother and sister to find Poppy already seated. "All 4 of you are mentioned in the will," one of the lawyers stated. "Well," Jacintia floundered for a reply to that. "No wonder. She must be eager to hear that my father left her a few pounds," she said, as she continued her way into the room. She took her seat, throwing a haughty glance at Poppy. "The housekeeper will be glad of every penny, being from a family so poor they couldn't afford to give her a proper name." She gave a grin, proud of her spiteful words. Desmeralda took the seat beside Jacintia, dislike of Poppy overwhelming her dislike of her sister. "And thus named you for the flowers in the field you were birthed in." Poppy made no reply, resting her attention on the familiar pictures on the wall behind the desk. She suspected the family thought her simple-minded. They assumed she didn't comprehend their insults, since she didn't respond to them. The idea that someone could hear a cross word and not lash out appeared to be unthinkable for them. "A little respect, ladies," Filippano said, taking the high ground now there was an audience. No wonder Zosran had found his family detestable, and how unfortunate he'd been to have 3 children so singularly unpleasant. Poppy settled her hands in her lap. He was a dear man who hadn't deserved to be cursed with such unlikable continuations of his line. The lawyer cleared his throat and began to read. His children fidgeted through the legal preamble, then sat straighter when the lawyer said the word bequests. "To my eldest daughter, I leave her mother's diamond necklace, since she has always coveted it. I hope she'll find the prize worth the wait." Desmeralda threw a triumphant glance at Poppy, while Jacintia beside her huffed crossly. "To my younger daughter, I leave her mother's sapphires. Every time she wears them, I hope she may reflect on how to better emulate the woman who gave her life. But after all this time, I have my doubts." Jacintia had begun to smile, but the gesture fell off her face at the final admonition. "What a wretch! What does he suppose is wrong with my behaviour?" "How long do you have?" Filippano drawled. She twisted to face her brother, but the lawyer cleared his throat again before she could commence an argument. "If I might continue?" Jacintia slumped back in her seat, while Filippano waved a lazy hand to resume. "To my son, Filippano," he sat forward, a smile playing around his lips in anticipation of what he was about to hear, "I leave my watch, although I am unsure he'll consult it often, now I have shuffled off this mortal coil, as he was so impatient for me to do." A shocked silence followed that pronouncement. Poppy wondered if the lawyers had argued over who would attend and read the will to the people so roundly despised by their client. There was no outward indication, but she'd swear the lawyer was enjoying this moment. "The remainder of all my worldly goods and my entire estate I leave to my beloved wife, Poppy Salastri, with thanks for making my final years full of love, laughter, and happiness." The silence after that was even more profound, although brief. "You snake!" Jacintia yelled, her expression twisted in fury. Filippano eschewed words, stepping forward with fists raised, as though he'd grab Poppy and shake the bequest out of her. One of the men who'd come with the lawyers stepped between them to halt the action. "Their marriage isn't valid," Desmeralda declared. "You took advantage of a confused old man." The lawyer answered that one. "The marriage is legal, and Mr. Salastri was of sound mind when he wrote the will, as well as when he entered the contract of marriage 3 years ago." 3 years? Jacintia stared aghast. "You might perhaps have kept on better terms with your father," the lawyer said. "Then you would have been invited to the happy event." "Damn him to hell," Filippano spat, fury overwhelming decorum. The lawyer stiffened. "Please remember where you are." "We'll contest the will," Desmeralda declared. "She won't get a penny." "That would be unwise," the lawyer said calmly. "The will is clear, it was correctly written and witnessed, and Mrs. Salastri is your father's legal widow. You have no grounds to contest. You'll simply be wasting your time and money in a challenge." Desmeralda's nostrils flared, as though she wanted to declare she didn't care if she spent every penny she possessed, as long as Poppy didn't receive anything. Poppy rose to her feet and faced Zosran's children, as she always had, with calm indifference. "The lawyers have your bequests," she indicated the jewel boxes on the desk. "Once you have signed and taken them, I require you to vacate the premises immediately. Zosran never enjoyed your visits, and nor did I. Frankly, I'll be glad to see the back of you for good." The 3 children yelled and insulted and raged, but in the end they subsided, took their bequests, and went. Once the lawyers had followed them, the house was finally silent. Poppy walked through the rooms, remembering earlier, happier times. She paused at a window, looking out across the park to the river, a scattering of wild flowers brightening the bank. This was hers now, all hers. Not bad for a woman who had indeed been born into poverty. She spotted red dots, poppies amongst the flowers outside, and smiled. Her family weren't so poor they couldn't afford a fancy name. They'd named her for the flower, perhaps hoping she'd share their resilience and bloom wherever she found herself. It had taken 47 years, but she'd certainly bloomed now. That was Survivors by Katy Haye. Please like and subscribe if you want to hear more. A new video is posted up every Friday. Thanks for listening.